Right. What's worse than getting raped by Jack the Ripper?
What?
Getting fingered by Captain Hook. That was a-
I thought the colony one would have been the worst one.
Yeah, but the colony one was much longer. This one was just straight to the point. Anyway, so we're back with another worst of Classic Who video. This time we're watching the Dominators from the Second Doctor era.
What is that? Hang on. Sorry, I have a query with your joke. Normally they have some relevance.
That's right. Okay, so when I was looking for a joke, I read the Dominators and I thought I need like a sexual domination joke, and that's it.
Okay.
Sexual domination, yeah, that's the relevance. I was really struggling.
You're reaching.
I was reaching inside. Anyway, if you haven't seen all of the new series, stop now because there will be spoilers. Yep, right. So we're trying to find if there's an episode that's worse than Hellbent, because Hellbent is the worst episode that we've seen.
Garbage.
If you disagree with us, name an episode from the new series and we will have to defend it, as we will do at the end of this video.
Yeah. Name an episode that you think is worse, so that we can, and please give us an explanation as to why you think it's worse, so that we can
Respond.
Yeah, so we can respond and have a conversation.
Yeah. And also, if you think there is a Classic Who story to add to our list of 28 on that we're doing, then suggest that and we will decide. Also, if you'd like to support our channel, we do have a Patreon, and you can donate and get rewards such as early access and even suggesting videos. And another thing I have to say is, a while back, can't remember how long it has been now, maybe a couple of months, I made a video on this channel called The 5 Most Overrated William Hartnell Stories. And the other night, I rewatched, actually not just the other night, but in the past few nights, I rewatched a couple of those stories. And one in particular is not overrated, it's in fact brilliant. And I didn't see it, I don't think I really got it the first time. Of course, I'm talking about The Crusade. And originally, I would have given The Crusade, based on my previous viewing, I would have given it about a 6 out of 10. Now, I would give it a 9 out of 10.
Wow. What changed?
It might be because I watched the Loose Cannon recon as opposed to the Who recon.
Understood.
Yep. But yeah, it's not overrated. it's very, very, very good. And I would like to make up for it, I'd like to do a little bit of a showcase just before we get into the Dominators. So, I'd like to read out a quote from the cliffhanger to part 1, and this is from Richard the Lionheart, played by Julian Glover.
Good old Julian.
And it really struck out to me, actually. So basically, in this story, Barbara's been captured by the villains, let's just say, and Ian and the Doctor are adamant on. Well, Ian mainly is adamant on finding her because obviously, he fancies Barbara. And the Doctor is asking Richard the Lionheart what he can do because obviously he's the king. And he says to the Doctor, "Understand this, that woman can rot in salad and sell until her hair turns white before I trade with that man who killed my friends." It's a very,
Authoritarian.
impactful, it's, most cliffhangers are associated with the Doctor dies.
Zoom in on the Doctor's
Zoom in, whereas this, they actually used a line of dialogue to keep you in suspense. And of course, another thing I would like to do is I'm just going to show. I'm not sure if you've seen The Crusade or not, but I just want to showcase the last 5 minutes of episode 3 because I think it's honestly some of the best acting in Doctor Who I've ever seen.
Oh, brilliant!
And it's between obviously William Hartnell and Maureen O'Brien are in this scene as well, but the main focus for me is Julian Glover and Jean Marsh as brother and sister.
Do you not agree, my Lord of Leicester? Is she not beautiful?
Indeed, madam. A fair rose of England in this foreign land.
Fredonia.
I thought I had your friendship.
You have, your highness, but the king spoke to me in confidence. I must not steal his thunder.
By the way, if you don't already know, William Hartnell's one of my favourite doctors.
He's extraordinary.
Yeah. So underrated.
I have no desire to upset the king. Dear, dear, dear. All this intrigue, I knew it. All this trouble. Here comes the king.
I will speak with my brother.
Oh?
What's this I hear? I can't believe it's true. Marriage to that heathenish man, that infant. I am no sack of flour to be given in exchange.
It is expedient. The decision has been made.
Not by me, and never would be.
Joanna, please consider. The war is full of weary, wounded men.
And how would you have me go to Saffordin? Bathed in oriental perfume, I suppose. Well, I like a different way to meet the man I am to wed.
Well, if it's a meeting you want.
I do not want. I will not have it.
Joanna! Joanna! Get out!
Joanna, I beg you to accept.
No.
I entreat you, Joanna.
No.
Very well. I am the king.
We command you.
You cannot command this of me.
Cannot!
His Holiness the Pope will not allow this marriage of mine to that infidel!
But, Joanna! You defy me with the Pope!
No! You defy the world with your politics! Marry me to them and you make a pact with the devil. Force me to it, and I'll turn the world we know into your enemy.
Who gave away my plan? Your Majesty, if you believe that
You
I...
are not welcome in our sight.
Oh, and then this cliffhanger as well.
The only pleasure left for you is death. And death is very far away.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Like, like that entire sequence is just so intense, isn't it?
And the brilliant thing about that is it goes to show the importance of the good side characters. Because, like, the Doctor could show up in a really neat world, but if the characters who inhabit the world that he and his companions visit, if the characters there aren't that interesting or aren't that fleshed out, then it really makes the story suffer. Whereas I was kind of disappointed when William Hartnell came back on screen because I was like, I want to just keep listening to them going back and forth. And you can tell, I'm not so sure about the woman, but I know Julian Glover has, that's his name, right? Yeah. I know he has Shakespearean training.
Yeah.
You can see both their theatre and their shit, because I do a bit of Shakespeare myself. Like, I was very much in awe of their intensity in their performances. It was like watching a stage play. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, in terms of their performances were very big, but they were so captivating. And who wrote that story?
David Whittaker. One
yeah.
of the best character writers in Doctor Who.
Just a wordsmith, a complete, like, the way the words just flowed off the tongue was just brilliant. And that cliffhanger of death is very far away.
I mean, if you haven't already picked up on that, basically Barbara was taken to a rape dungeon. It's a very dark story. I think the first time I watched The Crusade, the problem wasn't... I for some reason, I had this idea in my head that it was slow, but it's not. It's actually the other way around. The Crusade is such a tight story that if you don't know what's going on, you'll miss it, and then you'll lose the story. But because on that viewing, I actually had an understanding of all the characters, I got so engrossed in it, and it felt like watching Game of Thrones on 60s television. There was like 3 different plots going on all at once.
And it's political intrigue done well.
Yeah, and it was one of those. I couldn't, like, by the end of it, I was like, wow, that was 4 parts, but it made you felt like you wanted more from it because it was written so tightly, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just so, like, it's like so to the point and focused and, like, not over the top. Like, it's intense and it's very theatrical and bombastic, but you believe it, you buy into it.
And I also rewatched a couple more. I rewatched The Massacre. Still have problems with it, but it is, as an idea for a story, it's brilliant. I just think they need to be more clear with what is going, because the whole idea of the massacre is that Steven Taylor doesn't know that there's this big event going to happen in France where everyone's going to die. So they're trying to hide the information away from you, but I think they push it so far that the audience doesn't know. Yeah. And then obviously at the very end, all the tension's ruined by Dodo, because John Wiles decided to, instead of having Vicky, he axed her, put in Katerina, and then killed off Katerina, and then killed off Sarah Kingdom, and then killed off Anne Chaplet, and decided to have Dodo instead. And I don't know, there was those like 3 stories in a row where companions just kept on dying, because John Wiles couldn't decide what he wanted. It actually impacts my feelings on the massacre because it ruins the end. Yeah. And that end scene where Stephen is basically telling the Doctor that he's wrong, and he runs out of the TARDIS, and the Doctor's sitting there. I think in Adventure in Space and Time, they redo the scene where he's like saying, "Everyone's gone, my Susan, Chatterton, Chesterton, Barbara," like that scene's from that episode, and the end of the story is really bittersweet, but then Dodo just ruins it. Yeah. And then I also watched a bit of The Mythmakers. It's still garbage. I know people like The Mythmakers, but I just think it's so stupid. Like, it's supposed to be a dark comedy, but all the characters are unlikable. It's funny because I'm fat. It's funny because I'm stupid. Steven Taylor gets into a sword fight, and he dresses up as the enemy. He's like basically saying, "You have to fight me now because I'm dressed up in enemy colors." There's like supposed to be this. The way I read it, it's like, there could be some tension here, and then the guy holding the sword's like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't be sword fighting. That's a bit weird."
And it's like they're caricatures instead of characters. Yeah. Like, they're over the top and like.
It doesn't like. I know Doctor Who sometimes has comedy episodes, and there are comedy episodes that I really like.
Love and Monsters.
Well, that's a bit different. I'm more talking like The Chase, for example, is a comedy Dalek story, and that works for me because there are comedies that work for me. But with The Mythmakers, it just feels tonally wrong. Like, it feels like this could have been a serious historical, and they decided to do a comedy instead. And I don't know, it just doesn't work. And then again, more John Wiles bullshit. That's when he gets Vicky to. There's a whole subplot where Vicky's talking to these. I think are they Trojans or are they? I can't even remember. But the scene in Dalek with Rose and Adam Mitchell. Like, imagine that for 4 episodes as like a subplot.
Fuck Adam.
Along with and it's and similar to that scene, it's got this stupid, out of tune guitar music in the background.
That rings a bell.
And it's like and I just don't like it. Mythmaker is one of my least favourite Hartnell stories, unfortunately. But of course, we're not talking about that today. We're going to watch The Dominators. Anything else you want to say before we start?
Mm-mm.
Cool. Well, let's go then. Right, so here we have The Dominators, unopened. I have seen this story before, but I watched it on TV. But the DVD is fresh, brand new. And we'll tear off the plastic, satisfyingly. And, I actually think it's an interesting cover, even though it does look a little bit spacey, but
it's got nice symmetry.
I think anything with Patrick Troughton and I want to buy. Mm-hmm. Colours are nice. It's not much to say about it, is there?
No, it's obviously just similar to most of the DVDs. Screen grabs from the episodes, list of the special features, including the commentaries and stuff. Loose little synopsis with the round things on the background.
This DVD is from 2010, so it's one of the newer ones, relatively.
A purple disc.
Yeah, this is obviously the Aussie and New Zealand version. So it's got the round things.
Yep, and it's got the ABC DVD logo down there.
Well, not much else to say. Let's just get on with it, eh?
Excellent.
This title sequence really grew on me when I started watching lots of Troutons.
Oh, I love it.
It's basic, but it just works.
Yeah. Big nostalgia for me because I used to play the Hartnell and Troughton stories on ABC when I was like 3 years old. So
I
like,
just love the aesthetic of 62.
62 was like the first television I ever watched.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's right. The silly shoulder pads.
Destroy them, but only if...
Destroy them! Destroy them! So these were supposed to be the replacements for the Daleks.
I believe so. They were intended to be because
That's
of the copyright laws and stuff.
stupid.
Because they're like, oh, we're going to make them... You know that whole phrase, toyetic?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were going to make it so they could make action figures and stuff, and kids would love them, was the intention.
The Ewok mentality.
Ewoks. It's pretty much a dress, yeah. It's not even like a kilt, it's just a dress.
I mean, this is the technology.
Is this a sauna?
Because that's... Well, uninhabited for 107...
Are we on the planet Midnight and this is the train?
Oh no, don't get my hopes up like that. Midnight's so good.
Wait, what?
This is terribly delivered exposition. Both these guys and the other guys were like, that is our intention here, this is this, this is this, this is this.
You're actually here, are we? You don't believe me? Well, you could be...
I don't think they had, strangely, at this time, they didn't have a lot of money to hire the best actors for this season.
No.
Which is weird, because season 5 was so good. But whatever.
This is like all the edits, all the cuts. It might not be coming across on YouTube, but all the cuts here are like so abrupt
Yeah.
on every shot.
I think it's because they're cutting the sound and the
Yeah,
thing at the same time.
it's like an uncompressed, like just like the camera audio almost.
This really is an adventure, isn't it? Are you sure this isn't...
These costumes are terrible.
Yeah,
They look like the muffin wrapping.
yeah, like a wedding dress almost.
These like the Tooth Fairy people. This is a season opener. Same as Arc Infinity, same as Warriors of the Deep, same as Leisure Hive. They're like all of these except for Colony in Space have been season openers, and the only
good one.
the only good one was Colony in Space.
Oh man, that's...
I mean, Jake was sad about New Earth. What about us?
So was I. Yeah.
What about us?
Oh god, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to get off this dreary island as well.
Where's Jamie?
Yeah, I want some Jamie. Ooh, this is actually there was actually some interesting cinematography for a bit there.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with cinematography so far. It's just been the edits. Well,
Whoa!
oh,
Dead. Of course, that was unnecessary.
Oh, there's a crack. Whoa! That's a different sound effect.
it's more reverby.
Finally.
Oh, yeah. It was so peaceful, I just didn't want to leave.
Stephens have all that stuff by the door. He's just like, we're not going to get in danger this time. We're just going to have a nice holiday.
Yeah.
Whoa!
And friendly. It sounded like it.
Aye.
Explosion caused this.
Aye, Doctor.
My friend used to work in a memorabilia shop, and she just randomly one day sent me an image of her and Fraser Hines because he just walked into the memorabilia shop. She's like, "You're from Doctor Who, aren't you?" And he's like, "Yes,
Oh
I
my
am."
God.
I was like, "What?" And I was in the area as well, and she didn't tell me until afterwards, and I was upset and jealous.
A war museum.
Whoa. What the fuck? The hell?
They're the dress people, but they're in hazmat suits now, I think.
Ah.
Yeah, the ones that got
Ah, yeah.
shot. Did they get up from the shooting? Well, obviously they did, but those costumes are so distracting.
Yeah. They're really shit.
Because it's not even like endearingly tacky.
On
like,
on hers it looks
Yeah.
alright, but on the men it just looks bizarre.
But it's not even like, if it was like at their waist and it was
Yeah.
just like a long kilt looking thing, it probably
Yeah.
would have been fine. But because it's right up to the chest, it's so just odd.
Yeah.
Well, from a different time.
Not from this world, really. That's very interesting. I must note that in my daily report.
What are you doing here then?
We're part of the
Of course.
expedition from the university.
Jamie, always interested in the ladies. Oh, aye, what are you doing here? Is she supposed to be like the girl from Science in the Library? The dumb one.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like the lady that Troughton's son has with him in Midnight.
Oh, yeah.
Gave me no order to the contrary. You are a probationer, never.
These people are evil because they are loud and big and they have robots.
Who the hell was the costume designer for this episode?
It's really bad, isn't it?
It's distractingly so.
But then you get other stories in this season where the costumes are just amazing, like the Mind Robber.
Yeah.
What is that?
What is that? These guys could be just robots, like these people.
I have a feeling
Yeah.
they might be.
Yeah,
Looks like.
androids.
Yeah.
Like the way that they're talking, they could just be robots.
Yeah.
You right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Spacecraft? You didn't tell me you brought robots.
I haven't.
Robots?
They'd be killed by those creatures, and if you don't.
It's funny how Troughton is one of the more friendlier doctors when he is such like a. His eyebrows are so intense, like
Yeah.
he's got such a. Could have such a mean looking face.
Yeah, well, if you watch Enemy
Enemy of the World.
of
yeah.
the World, yeah. This, I could be nitpicking, but feels like a very plot devicey episode.
Yeah. Most of the lines of dialogue are exposition.
Yeah.
There's no real character.
There's lots of stereotypes as well. This feels very much like routine Doctor Who.
Like a checklist of things of
Yeah.
classic Doctor Who.
Yeah. You know, you got your robots, you got your villains.
You've got
You've
your
got-
sort of slightly pacifist, but also there's something else going on.
Yeah.
Other side characters.
Yep. You've got like the eye candy.
Yeah.
You've got the explosions, and then there's like oh, I don't trust you. You came in a weird box. You
Yeah.
must be a spy.
Yeah, and also the robot thing is also in the first episode archetype of just seeing the point of
Oh,
view.
look, the footprints.
Oh no!
Oh no! Evidence. Oh, let's split up the companions. You go there, we'll go here.
Hey, look at that! That really is interesting.
Trying to be funny.
I have nothing.
This is actually surprising me for a few reasons, and I'll say why in the review.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're not thinking what I think you're thinking, are you? I think
Oh my word.
Without subtitles, I would not be able to understand what they're saying.
It's a bit crap, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we already summed it up. Checklist Doctor Who.
Uh-huh.
No tension.
No.
No.
Granted, it is the first episode.
Of
But
5, yeah.
But it's like the most archetypal first episode you could possibly have as a
Yeah.
setup for a classic.
There's no style, no flair. Just
No. The direction's so basic. The editing's weird.
it feels like a shittier version of a Part 1 Dalek story. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On to part 2, I suppose.
Yep. No, I got nothing to say.
Neither. Let's do it.
And this would have been real disappointing coming after season 5, which is literally like every story is so creative and so
Yeah.
interesting.
It's
I reckon that entire 25 minutes could have been summed up in like a pre-title sequence.
Yeah,
and
pretty
this
much.
could have been like a 4-parter.
It easily could have, and that would save money and time. And
Apparently this was originally a 6-parter and they cut it down to 5.
already I'm feeling like that's too much, and I've only seen one episode.
Yeah. We've got 4 more episodes.
Fuck.
In the words of Cody, the Dominators is, and let's be fair to it, a right pile of shite.
How the hell did they think this was going to be? Oh.
Wow. I
What?
feel like it's episodes like this is why they decided to make a change with the Pertwee era.
We are Dominators.
Quarks. Quarks. They're called quarks.
So they're sort of doing like an X-ray on him or something.
Must be studying different.
Probe your physiological makeup.
Maybe they're like.
Pew, pew. What?
Maybe they're
Sound like dubstep.
only less garbage. Oh.
Isn't it like the Series 7B theme is like a dubstep Doctor Who?
Was it?
Well, kind of. Had like a little bit of
This might be a controversial opinion, but none of Matt Smith's themes. I didn't like any of Matt Smith's themes.
just doesn't sound like Doctor Who, eh?
Yeah, and I don't mean like I mean the opening credits. Like his music, like I Am the Doctor and stuff, is brilliant. But like just his intro music, the 11th
yeah.
Doctor, nah,
It's,
didn't like it.
It's catchy, but it's not Doctor Who.
It lacks the drums
Yeah.
or something. High top maybe.
And they sort of changed it a little bit as well.
Yeah, it became airier.
Yeah. Like it lacks this, like, because all the themes except for that one have the sort of the same thing as the Hartnell theme. They're the same beats, you know.
We could talk. Jake would probably be able to tell us better because he's more versed
Oh,
in
yeah.
music theory than we are. But
I don't think I would mind it if it came first, though. If the first Doctor Who theme I heard was that one,
oh yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
that's
I'd
why
mind
probably
it.
a lot of people are quite like a lot. That's why I say it's probably a controversial opinion because it's probably a lot of people's first theme. 'Cause
Yeah.
a lot of people came on with Series 5,
Yeah.
which is understandable. And like if there's not a problem with that, that's just a personal taste thing. But yeah, it does nothing for
Yeah.
me. Whereas Eccleston,
I don't mind it as a closing theme, but as an opening theme, it doesn't
Yeah.
get me
hyped.
hyped.
The series 1 through 4, all their themes and the specials got me so pumped.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, yeah, Doctor Who's on.
And then the the Capaldi theme is basically just air rape.
It was not good.
I like what it goes for, but the sound is painful.
Yeah, and the weird sort of, yeah.
But controversially as well, I actually like all the 80s themes.
Same. I love them.
Even the McCoy theme.
Same.
I think it suits his Doctor. and his psychedelic era.
That's the one.
Whoa!
Whoa! Pond. James Pond.
And in less than 8 minutes, you're there.
Look, how long are you going to keep us like this?
Yeah, you're right about the cutting. The cutting in this is strange.
Yeah.
It's so abrupt.
To mention the word intelligence.
There was none of that involved in writing this story.
Or how stupid. I wonder which is the more important to them.
That was the Doctor just being a dick to Jamie.
Yeah. They obviously didn't upgrade the new patch for After Effects, did they?
Correct or sentence? Well, I'm sure the director will approve our decision after all. Sufficiently considered the claims about it. Really, gentlemen, we have been debating.
That's the most mesmerising thing that's been in this episode.
An actual set.
I can't take this seriously because of the bloody costumes.
It's annoying me because most Troughton stories have this tension to them.
They usually have really good atmosphere.
Yeah, this just doesn't.
No. Like the war games.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Tomb of the Cybermen.
Oh, that shot with us. Oh, it's, yeah.
Oh, I'll have you know, this is a kilt doctor.
I could kind of see how they might be trying to evoke like Roman togas in terms of like it
Yeah.
being like a possibly like a futuristic version of the Roman Empire. But as far as I can tell, they're like a peaceful colony, which the Romans weren't.
Yeah.
The Romans were quite a violent and powerful force, whereas this is with slaves and everything. Whereas this is not good. Did he just say where we fell?
I think I know what the problem with this story is.
What?
There's no dominant characters.
No. Even the Dominators are just goofy.
Yeah. That's ironic, though. The Dominators has no dominant characters.
No, yeah.
Aside from the regulars.
Yeah.
Has landed. Radioactivity has disappeared.
This guy
and
looks
there are
like if
robots on that
Tom Holland had a midlife crisis.
Yeah. I can see it.
I imagine back in the 60s there would be some people that would get triggered by this because of all the, transphobia, stigma. And all these men are wearing these very, pretty dresses.
Yeah. Because there was kind of like an anti-establishment movement, counterculture thing in the 60s in London, but it was not broadcast on a 6 p.m. and it was also much, much cooler looking than this. This is not very rock and roll.
No. These Quarks are fucking terrible.
It's weird how they're like... They're icons, because Doctor Who fans know their design, but they're not icons for the right reasons. They're icons for how shite they are.
What's the purpose?
To be used as slaves, but if he's too intelligent, they can't use him as a slave, so he's pretending to be dumb, I think?
It's funny because I was about to say, he's reminding me of Matt Smith here.
But this is what is great about the Troughton character, is he would often present himself as a buffoon, even though he was, ferociously intelligent, but...
And then somehow Matt Smith took that, and instead of pretending, he actually was a buffoon.
That's because...
At times.
Yeah. Yeah. McCoy had a similar thing as well.
Oh, yeah, season 24.
Yeah. And didn't we have troubles with the prototype?
I'm supposed to be scared for these characters' lives, but I'm not.
No. It's just boring. Just really boring.
Can you see why I think there might be androids, though? Because they're not looking at each other?
I have a feeling, though, that actor might be blind. Because Because the other one has been looking at people, but that guy, he's just not looked directly at anyone. He's more just looked at where the sounds are coming from. Which
Interesting.
blind people usually do. And I don't even think that this is something that, like, oh, it hasn't aged well. I think this would have not been good even for the time.
See, I don't remember a lot of this, but there's small moments where I'm getting deja vu watching this. And I think you had the same thing with Colony in Space,
Yeah.
didn't you?
Yeah. But Colony...
But my mind's just blocked off all this bullshit.
Because it's not saying... It's Michael Cera. But it's not saying... or it's not...
It's Michael Cera and some very attractive blonde. Intentionally, though, right?
Yeah. She's like... As you said, she's like what's-her-face from... Thingy. The one who gets the MS Paint face.
I don't think you
The man that never would.
into it first, didn't I?
Even though in Day of the Daleks, the Doctor just shoots someone randomly and doesn't care.
Yeah. And also, unless I'm misremembering, doesn't in Unearthly Child, doesn't the Doctor try to beat a caveman to death with a rock?
Yeah, and in The Crusade, he smacks a guy to death with with his walking stick.
That's right.
Colin Baker shoots a Cyberman in Attack of the Cybermen.
Colin Baker shoves those dudes into the acid, even though, to be fair, it could be argued that they fell off their own accord, but he totally pushed those guys into the acid bath.
I think when that line hit, I remember now, I think when they said that line, my dad's like, oh, is that the Master? And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not the Master. This is a very perverted story, isn't it?
But not like good weird, like Leisure Hive was. I mean,
I remember that now. I remember the story. It's finally clicking. I finally recognize the story. As soon as they sat down in that little bus thing. Yeah. I don't know if it gets good from here or not, but I do remember that bit. Because from that marathon, I have images in my head of episodes, but I can't remember which ones they're from. Like, there's something from there's one of the Colin Baker stories, I think it's either Mark of the Rani or it's The Two Doctors. And I really liked it, but I can't remember which one it was.
Probably The Two Doctors, I'd imagine.
Let's go get a capsule.
Yeah, it doesn't look as good as the catsuit, does it? Aye.
I hate energy drinks,
Then why are you having one?
so I don't fall asleep.
Why'd you buy a Red Bull?
Literally, so I don't fall asleep.
The Red Bull is like the Dominators of the energy drinks.
It's like I'm drinking battery acid. Carbonated taurine drink, serve ice cold.
At least V tastes like something.
They taste the same to me. Vitalize body and mind. What? Mind has a service mark on it. Oh yeah, I should be watching the episode, I suppose.
Well, you should be. Is a couple of interesting ideas, I guess.
Like the sort of defenseless, peaceful species just having no way to go against these violent aggressors.
I remember those those what do you call it?
Visor thing.
Yeah, I remember those now. I'm Spider-Man.
Tell you what, that new Spider-Man game looks fun.
I played it last night.
Yeah?
Good? It's... okay. It's kind of like a mix of Assassin's Creed and GTA. It's not as flimsy as GTA, thankfully. But it's kind of got like that whole city vibe to it.
The open world, yeah.
The comparison to the Assassin's Creed, I think, comes from... It's like a fighting style that is really cool for like 10 seconds. And then it gets repetitive.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How's the web swinging?
Pretty good.
That's good. Because at least something I like about that is that the fact that it actually connects to buildings.
Yeah.
Which you would think would be such something that they would include in every
Yeah,
game.
it's
But
pretty good, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get to play any missions, but
yeah.
the free play is a bit generic for me.
Alright. It's going to be hard to top Spider-Man 2, the game, for me, because that was...
Destroy!
These villains are way too generic. Way too generic.
Yeah.
Destroy! These guys could easily be like Cybermen or something.
This is only episode 2.
Speaking of flimsy. So the Doctor and Jamie are being tortured. And these lot are on a bus?
They've just got back to the station that was on the island. And it was getting blown up by the things. Episode 3?
Yep.
We went from Colony in Space to did we do something after? No, Colony in Space to Warriors of the Dead.
Deep. Like, that is such a sharp drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is literally like watching paint dry.
Yeah, it was so dull.
Is there any other episodes worse than this one? Well, I wouldn't say it's worse than Warriors of the Deep yet.
Yeah.
Dull,
It's very dull.
It's not like offensive or anything. It's just really terrible.
That's the thing, yeah. Was Warriors of the Deep kind of made me angry.
Yeah.
This doesn't make me anything.
Yeah. Title sequence is great though. Like even when I'm watching a shit episode, it always gets me back up again.
I feel like I'm trapped.
Like, it's crazy how this is 5 parts and it's so shit, but then later in the season they do the War Games, which is 10 parts, and then every second is captivating.
Oh man, that's such a good.
I can't believe Lord Slow likes this story. It must be just his, like, affliction with the Troughton 60s era.
But even by Troughton standards, in fact, especially because of Troughton standards, Troughton's really good. Usually his episodes are so captivating, and this is...
Only on episode 3!
not even halfway.
Fucking hell! The most interesting thing about this story is this room. This sort of lobby. It's really cool.
The set design, yeah. Not the actual...
Not the costumes, no.
Not the costumes or the context within the story. But,
This worries me because the other 2 Troughtons are from this season, and they're written by Robert Holmes, and apparently they're worse than this.
no!
I don't want to see Robert Holmes go lower than this. That would just be heartbreaking, wouldn't it? Although, I mean, I've heard a couple of people like the Crotons, but the Space Pirates...
That's gonna be fun.
Especially because it's going to be a recon. I recognise that actor.
Honey, I think we stand a chance.
This is fucking Dora the Explorer or something. See, we wouldn't know what it was saying if...
Because we have subtitles on.
Yeah.
And if we didn't, we wouldn't be able to understand what the hell they were saying.
I wouldn't know that wow means move. Oh, these guys are just the worst. They are honestly just cardboard characters.
Cardboard characters in a styrofoam world.
So the doctor taking
Alien from another world.
He's trying so hard to make this good.
Yeah.
And he is brilliant.
Gonna send someone
But-
to the island or I am not.
This guy reminds me of Slughorn. He's like, no.
Why seek limits where there may be none? You can't just sit here and do nothing.
exactly! Go and do something! Fucking get on with it. He's just standing there talking about what they could be doing. Did you know that was going to happen?
Yeah, I remember. If it might be in other stories as well, but I remember I've seen images of him eating.
That's the debut of the Jelly Baby.
Yeah. Sure.
You will all be destroyed. So remember, you are welcome for your lives.
There's nothing interesting about these villains. They are so generic.
The best villains are the most nuanced ones.
You will be destroyed.
Well, there's only 2 quarks. It's
I
fine.
think I've seen this kind of plot before in the Dalek invasion of Earth, except it's way more interesting.
I like that the companion's actually a proactive member of the story. She's actually trying to do something of her own initiative.
Yeah.
Accept you both say,
That's cool.
but I'm afraid I also agree with Zoe and Cully. Meek's submission would be humiliating.
But going back to the checklist, now we've got the slavery politics, you know.
Breaking free of the.
Oh, now he's got a big wiry thing. I'm going to do something real complicated and smart because I'm the doctor.
And your companion's going to complain about it whilst you go, you still can get into this now, what I'm doing.
I'm just doing some wibbly wobbly to fix this timey-wimey. So is he hot wiring the bus or whatever they're in?
Must be, yeah. So he can pilot him himself.
Oh yeah.
I watched Spider-Man 1 the other night. So he's ready. These things are terrible.
Imagine if they actually had become the new Daleks.
Series 1.
Rob Sherman.
Quark.
Rob Sherman has to write a story called Quark, and Christopher Eccleston's like, "What's the point of you?"
And these things.
And the time war. You would make a good Quark.
We'll have to put that quark out of action for a start, or we won't stand a chance.
Yes, but how?
Well, there's a laser gun in that museum place. Somehow we've got to get hold of it.
I am a human Quark.
You stupid tin box, can't you see he's worn out?
even the characters are mocking it.
Yes.
God.
We're not used to money.
You are better at dying.
This is not war.
I'd be,
This is pest control.
you know, I'd be real pissed off if the Quarks decimated the Cybermen in Series 2. That just would have been... Because I can accept it with the Daleks, but not... If it was the Quarks... Fuck, that would be terrible.
Of all the classic monsters that could come back in the new series with a redesign, I think the Quarks should be it.
Chris Chibnall.
Yeah, get on it, Chips.
I know you're saying all new monsters, but we want the Quarks for the finale. Get Captain Jack and the Quarks together. This entire thing is just showing them hot wiring a ship or whatever it is.
Are we on episode 2 or 3?
3.
Oh, thank God. Still got 2 more to go.
2.5.
With respect, I'm reluctant to rely on his You do not admit that he is not a dogship. Robots are aggressive. And as yet, it's not on. But if they are, then we can either
Fight. It's either win or die. Okay. Little bit of tension now. Finally. I'm starting to remember the episode now. This story has horrendous padding, doesn't it? Yeah, it's starting to click for me now.
What can you see? I'll cut across those cliffs. I'll go this way.
Ready?
Yes.
So has he been like eliminated or something?
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
It's like a real shit version of Bad Wolf. It's got Daleks in it as well. Ah, yeah, pretending. Ah, I see. Shit. What a shit fire. Can he not aim? Because he's dumb. If they had a bit of voice, it wouldn't be as terrible, would it?
I don't know, their design's pretty bad. I was going to use stronger language, but
There's no good balance in the way now.
I'm just,
Just shoot it!
Well, we better be quick. Those Dominators will be after me soon.
We better be quick. Shoot! Do it now! Do it!
You were told to keep away from the Quarks. What did I do? Right,
I don't like all the little tubes in the
What?
It's gross.
Evade! Fuck! Destroy!
Reminds me of a Teletubby in the way it moves.
Oh no. Pathetic explosions. Wow. Still got 2 more parts. It's so tedious, isn't it?
Why? Oh, God. I'm gonna change the battery and then camp before it dies.
Yeah.
Lucky bastard.
Fucking hell.
Which episode was that? 3?
3, yeah.
3.
Episode 4.
Yay! They arrived on the planet. The Doctor thought it was peaceful, and it was. But they arrived on an island, which was an artifact of times gone by with weapons and stuff. Thank you. And then these Dominators arrived with these stupid little robots. And then the Doctor was like, "Oh no, I'm too intelligent to be your slave," so they let him go. And then one of the dumb robots blew up, and the guy was yelling, "Destroy! Destroy! Destroy!"
And that took 75 minutes of screen time to tell that story.
Yes. God knows how much money as well.
You may get the feeling from these reviews that we don't like Doctor Who, but we do.
We love it.
We love Doctor Who. It's
It's our
just,
favourite show, but
but there's just some episodes that are terrible.
And if you think it's because we don't like this era, the War Games is collectively one of our favourite stories. Probably in my top 10.
It's in my top 2
Yeah.
at least. Hard to say. Hard to compare some stories to
Yeah.
others.
Because they're both very good. They're all very good for different
But
reasons.
I think the War Games is probably my favourite classic Who story.
It's up there for me.
And even this season as well, right after this is The Mind Robber, which is so creative and so interesting. It's the complete opposite of this.
Yeah, this is just... Maybe they thought with this kind of story they were just playing it safe.
And The Invasion, which is my favourite Cyberman story.
My favourite Cyberman story is Closing Time.
No.
I'm kidding, by the way.
No.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I just wanted to provoke him so I could get some form of entertainment from this nightmare that I'm living.
Controversial, I'd rather watch Closing Time than The Dominators.
Same, because it's
Yeah.
only 45 minutes
Yeah, and at least it's funny.
in parts.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm saying this, but at least it's at least you have Matt Smith and James Corden pretending to be gay lovers.
And the little stuff, and the stuff with the baby's cute. Like Stormageddon, the Dark Lord of All. It's a neat little...
Yeah, and then you got the ladies in the shopping centre, and it's kind of, they're like, oh, you're a couple.
Yeah.
And then the Cybermen turn up, and they beat it because Craig thinks of his baby, and of course Cybermen can't have emotions.
Despite the fact that in Rise of the Cybermen, the implication was everything was ripped out except their brain.
Ah, it's not canon. It's Russell T Davies.
Perhaps it is you who is not fit to be a dominator.
Oh, here we go. Bad guys turning on each other.
Ooh.
Check.
Heel turn. Is his head gonna blow up? The music just stopped.
The first interesting thing to actually happen in this story.
We're on the second to last episode.
Oh, okay. So now he's dominating him. I don't think I'm going to have any trouble fitting this all into one video.
I mean, we didn't say anything for about an hour. Because there was nothing to say.
Oh, I remember that. Small details I remember. Fuck. More sitting and waiting around.
This is the problem when you write a story about wholly pacifist societies is it's very difficult to make the story feel driven when you've got characters just sitting around saying, no, I'm not going to be proactive.
Yeah.
Even if it's the point of the story is to say, well, you should have proactivity even if you're a pacifist. It just... it happens sometimes in, other science fiction shows as well. But it's just...
Yeah, like I said, there's no diversity in the characters. They're all the same.
Yeah.
They're all just shit.
Zoe's the only one who... Zoe and the Doctor and Jamie
Yeah.
are the only ones who are doing anything.
Mhm.
So you remember Infamy of the
Zaros, yeah.
Zaros? And how it was the most generic sort of story, but then it turned into... Spoilers for Infamy of the Zaros.
Big Finish 10th Doctor Adventures.
Yeah. How it turned into a metatextual kind of
Yeah.
play on the typical Doctor Who tropes.
Yeah.
These are these tropes that it was playing on.
Except they're playing this straight.
Yeah. And it just hasn't aged well because we're
Same thing with the Space Museum. The Space Museum basically mocked this.
Yeah.
And that happened years before this.
Absolutely.
Before we started this, Tony said to me, it'll be good today because I've done all my homework so I can watch the episode with you. And I'm like, okay.
I'm not sure if no, he's not on camera, but because it's so unengaging. the little fellow? The little fellow is right here. Now, let's have a look at it, shall we?
Fuck. You know how sometimes there are episodes that are a runaround?
Mm-hmm.
This is a sit-down episode. Sit down and walk around.
Which is arguably worse.
Attack the Quarks.
Said this like a million times.
Jamie's great.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever met anyone that dislikes Jamie.
No, neither. A genuine laugh. Wow. Maybe it's just because I'm like slap happy and dazed because I'm so far gone, but there was a laugh.
There's been so many times in the story it said, you go that side, I go this side.
This whole story could have been done in like 15 minutes.
Like this story is begging to have the channel changed.
Yep. Roger, roger.
Dumbed down technobabble. Instead of it being too complicated to understand, it's too dumb to care.
Yeah, too dumb to be interesting.
Yeah. He just threw a rock at it. He just wants the episode to end. He's just like throwing rocks at it like...
Jamie is the biggest
He's
hero
just
of the
like,
story
he's
because
just like, fuck off.
Yeah.
You missed me.
This is so colossally shite.
Whoa.
Da, 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 da,
I think I remember this.
da, 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 da.
You're not even going to show it?
Oh, come on. Oh, boo.
Poor.
Boo.
Could have at least shown a shitty, like, fall over.
And then we'll laugh.
Well, she's the mathematician.
Mm.
I love the fact that in the invasion she manages to calculate the missiles to blow up the Cyberman ship. That's really cool.
She's kind of like an underrated companion, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, this is
This team.
this team is one of my favorites, but
Yeah.
this story is just a load of shit. I actually prefer her to Victoria. I find Victoria, because she doesn't want to go on the adventures, she's kind of an anti-character. Yeah. She's like, oh, Jamie! I don't like it, Jamie! I just can't, like, again, I'll repeat myself. It blows me away how uncreative this is when right after this we get the Mind Robber, which is one of the most creative stories.
That is negative, for we can do nothing.
We can do nothing. We can do nothing. Let's sit here and do nothing.
This is reminding me of the bloody Star Wars prequels, Phantom Menace in particular, with the Jedi Council sitting in a room doing fuck all.
Yep. I do not trust the boy. How could you make Samuel L. Jackson boring?
They managed it somehow.
I don't trust him.
Did you know he's got BMF written on his lightsaber handle?
BMF.
Bad motherfucker.
You defy a Dominator.
They're so generic.
So are these people going to do something now?
Probably not.
Yeah, we'll just sit here and submit.
Defy your questioner, Dominator, obey!
They kind of are like really, really, really boring versions of the Ood.
Yeah.
Because the Ood, at least there's something there. Jesus.
It feels like we're on episode 2 and we're on episode 4.
We've still got another episode to go.
Do you
Damsel
dare
in
to defy a
distress.
Dominator?
But they've said that like 10 times this episode. You dare defy a Dominator. Tony, drop wings. You dare defy a Dominator.
He just said it again. No one attacks the Dominator.
I'm so sick of these characters. They're painfully annoying.
Characters.
Yeah. Like, the plot's about to go ahead and they're like, no, we would have known about it. No.
No. Bureaucracy.
No, nothing can be wrong. It wouldn't happen to us.
He has destroyed a Quark and defied the Dominators.
You're next, you know the boy. Where is he? Answer, or you will die.
Well, at least it's a standard cliffhanger this time.
Episode 5.
Fucking hell. Oh.
It's like The Predator. Like the latest one. Shane Black's a great filmmaker, but you can tell the studio has just ripped apart his script. And even though...
Predators.
You reckon? I could not stand the latest one, The Predator. I thought it was... Yes. It's... If you didn't like Predators, you're probably going to hate The Predator. Yeah, it's terrible. Excellent.
Are we ready
Cool,
for
yep.
go part 5?
Yeah, let's do it. Part 5. Just shoot me now.
Is this the only 5-parter?
No, I think there's a couple others.
But what story has 5 parts?
I don't... Not on our list. I think just generally there's others.
Oh no, I'm saying yeah, in Doctor Who, like...
But I can't think of them, but I swear there are. Is there one... You dare defy a Dominator? Seeds of Doom.
Oh, I love the Seeds of Doom.
I wish I was watching that.
No one cares about this bullshit.
Another thing on the Doctor Who checklist is a quarry.
Oh, yeah. Are they back down here again? Intergalactic hide and seek.
Bullshit.
Where could this story possibly go?
It could end, and then we could be happy.
See, I remember that.
Hey, Collie, would you...
Court. Give me your court.
Oh, they're gonna put it over the Quark.
Fuck's sake.
Duct tape? Are you serious? Duct tape? There's something a hornswoggle would do. You go there, I'll go there. Now they're all hiding in there.
Jesus.
Fucking hell. We're not even close to the end of the episode.
So how does their machines running on low power make them more of a threat?
I don't know.
You know why they killed him? Because he dared to defy them.
You dare defy a Dominator?
Stupid. This is so Stupid.
This is the most boring Nazi story I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
The whole planet will become one vast molten mass of radioactive material. The fuel store
So it's kind of like when the Slovene wanted to melt Earth for fuel.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of like the fires of Pompeii as well.
Yeah. Except the volcano was already there.
True.
So they want to create a volcano with rockets. For fuel.
With a device bomb thing that goes into the molten core, it's going to go boom, and then a volcano will appear, and then it'll be radioactive magma. Why didn't this part of the story happen like 3 episodes ago?
Yeah. This is the exposition we've been waiting for, and it's in episode 5. And now they've got like 10 minutes to actually do the plot.
Less than. We're 12 minutes in.
Yeah. Ah, yep. The doctor's gonna do the clever bit.
Right, we start the tunnel there. Get that bunker.
You go that way, and you go that way. Oh! Doesn't he use the sonic screwdriver?
Is this the first?
Yeah!
Yeah.
Yes! I've seen this! No, it's not the first.
Oh,
First
no,
is
yeah.
Fury from the Deep. But I remember this.
Ah!
He burns holes in the wall with the sonic screwdriver. Aye, the doctor's very good. I found out an interesting stat the other day about the sonic screwdriver.
Mm.
So, the amount of times per episode on average that Matt Smith uses the sonic screwdriver is 3.42.
Right.
The amount of times that Tom Baker, on average, uses the sonic screwdriver per episode
Yeah.
is 0.09.
Wow. Big difference.
Yeah. Compared to 3.42 per episode for Matt Smith. So Matt Smith uses it once every 15 minutes.
Approximately.
That was just a small quantity. But with 10 times that amount, you should have quite a handy little bomb.
He's a little terrorist.
So what is it? They're building a bomb to blow up the Quarks?
Lighting device, I think.
So
I can't.
they're creating an explosion to prevent an explosion.
That's the one.
What a genius plot idea. Let's do a little sciencey thing.
Stupid.
Doctor. You will die, Doctor.
Don't look. Don't look.
Toby, don't look.
You are right, they are like Teletubbies.
It's like video game logic when, like, you're playing Hitman or something. You drop something, and then the guards will all be like, "Huh? What was that?" Walk up to it, and then.
Ah, you dare defy a Dominator?
Continue working.
What?
Because he's supposed to conserve their energy because he can't send them out on the...
There's no menace to them if they can't walk fast.
You dare defy!
2 of them destroy. We have 8 left. Oh, they're doing like a jumper leads thing. That's another Doctor Who checklist. Drilling. I will personally destroy them. God. Still got like another 5 minutes. Oh, we're trapped.
Up here. Quarks can't climb. I hope.
Long live the king. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, you gotta leave me behind. Just go. Just go. Far wherever you are. Da, 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 da. Lion still has claws. It's us signaling the death of this story.
I'm hoping all the supporting characters get a red wedding.
Yes.
Just everyone dies.
Yes. A big bomb.
And then Dr. Jamie and Zoe just bugger off.
Yes, please. Let's see this planet die and all its creatures, including you.
Just blow it up. Who cares? Alderon it.
It's like the things inside the Kinder Surprise.
Yeah.
Get Thunderbird 2 to drop it in the ocean and then it goes... Oh, for God's sake. It's running
Is
on
that Patrick Troughton?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it?
Pretty sure it is. Unless I'm mistaken.
Looks like a little bit taller and skinnier
Yeah.
than him, but might just be the camera, yeah.
Did he just put...
He's just Bugs Bunny'd them. He's just...
Is he killing them in cold blood?
I think so.
What a lazy script.
Only affect the island. Maybe so, but we happen to be on the island. Oh my word!
It's by far the worst Troughton story I've seen.
Same. By a long shot.
I'll be very surprised if the Robert Holmes stories are worse than this.
I'll be heartbroken.
Yeah.
And tortured.
Time for the recap. Right. The Dominators. First thought.
My soul has left my body. My enthusiasm has died. It's all just, it was a checklist of monotony done in such a boring way that... Bleh.
Yeah, the Dominators was a right pile of shit. There wasn't really anything about it that I liked that much. You know, there's a couple of moments.
Obviously, it goes without saying, we're like the TARDIS team, as we mentioned. But everything around them was hot garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Garbage!
Well, let's get into the TARDIS team. What do you think of the Doctor?
It was fine. And it's Patrick Troughton, so he's incredibly charismatic. But in terms of the story,
Yeah, you could see he was really trying to do something with the story.
He tried to put life to the words.
He stuck out like a sore thumb because he was
an interesting presence.
Yeah. The Doctor wasn't written very well, was he?
No one was. Spoilers, no one was. It was all so bland and generic and repetitive. So repetitive.
Yeah. I mean, I do love Patrick Troughton, but there's only so much you can do with this script. Ugh.
There's no Doctor that could be in this episode that would make it better.
No. Not even Pertwee, not even Tennant, not even Colin Baker, not even Eccleston, no one.
No.
What about Jamie?
I suppose at least he did some stuff. But he was he was just, for most of it, just standing by the Doctor saying the same thing as everyone else did. Let's split up. Then he went with Buddy Tully or whatever his name was. Yeah. And then they did the same thing for 2.5 episodes. Then he rolled some boulders, then he did some blowing up, and then he defied the Dominators, and then he went away in the TARDIS stand.
No, you just took the words out of my mouth. How about Zoe?
She, to begin with, was quite good when she was fighting against she was defying the Dominators, when she actually, stood up and tried to lead a bit of a revolution and tried to make a plan. She was proactive and she was intelligent, so she was quite good. She's probably the only thing that I genuinely liked in the story. It's just everything surrounding her.
I think once you started picking up rocks, her character came to a grinding halt.
That's the one, because I was going to say, just before that, there was nothing, and just as soon as that ended, there was nothing. But end of episode 2, sort of bits of episode 3, real good. Yeah. But 1 and 5 and 4.
Probably my least favourite part of this was the Dominators. Those characters with the shoulder pads. I actually don't mind the design that much. Even though it is shit, I actually don't mind the design. It's just the characters was so annoying.
What character?
There
was nothing to them. They were the most generic, evil, and there was no
not defy a Dominator.
And there was no wit or menace or humour to any of it. It was just so bland, and I hated it.
Yeah, I really didn't like the Dominators.
Both the episode
and the characters. And then the Quarks. So tell your story about them. They're supposed to be the replacement for the Daleks, right?
Well, I believe I was reading somewhere that the Quarks, when this story was being written, Terry Nation had basically pulled back the rights from the BBC to use the Daleks and all likeness and everything like that, all the copyright around the Daleks, so he could try and make a series of movies out of them, make a franchise of movies out of the Daleks. But obviously that never came to fruition. That's the word. Yeah. This story is frozen in my brain. But it never came to fruition. But if it had, BBC wouldn't have been able to use the Daleks ever again. So they were trying to come up, when they were writing the story, they told the production team, come up with something that could potentially be used as a replacement for the Daleks. And this is what they came up with. And apparently everyone on set, and the writers and the directors and everyone, when they saw these things, were like, are you trying to sabotage us? This is not going to replace the Daleks. Everyone knew it. They were terrible. But great, because they were so hilariously bad. But actually no, that's giving them too much credit, because it's not like the Merca, which was amazingly bad. These were just awkward.
Yeah, they were like sci-fi Teletubbies.
Yeah.
But at least the Teletubbies, you could hear what they were saying.
Yeah.
If we didn't have subtitles, we wouldn't have known what the Quarks were saying.
Not at all.
Yeah, terrible design, terrible idea. Fuck off. And then we got the side characters, the dress-wearing pacifists. They were almost just as annoying as the Dominators themselves. They honestly just... Their entire character was, no, let's not do this.
Because they're pacifists, they're consequently passive within the narrative. So they didn't do anything. And then those who did fucking died, but not in an interesting way. And then it's bull, fuck it. They suck.
Yeah, they all sucked. Every single character in that group was the same, except for the blonde woman.
Yep.
Where she was just there to look good. It was it was a train wreck. Plot. First thing I'm going to say about the plot of the Dominators is some of the worst cliffhangers I've ever seen. Like,
they're all abrupt.
All of them are shit. Yeah. Even the one at the very end with the volcano. Yeah.
The editing was weird. Possibly because it had been cut down from 6 episodes to 5.
Yeah.
But like the editing was real weird and the plot was just so slow and like you can have slow plots, particularly in the 60s era Doctor Who, and they can be amazingly captivating because you've got this rich story and this interesting world.
Massacre is like that.
Yeah. But this was all just super generic and super boring and just lame.
Yeah. It was poorly paced, poorly made, poorly edited, poorly acted, except for the regulars. There was nothing about this story that actually stood out. It was just drivel.
It really was.
Yeah, embarrassing to watch. I don't even want to talk about the plot. I know that we kind of have to dig into some stuff, but I honestly don't even want to talk about it.
No, it's terrible.
I mean, there was there any ideas you liked?
No. It was all super like generic, as we were saying, and even at the time this came out, I think, because this is season 5, 6? 6. So it'd been on for a certain number of years that tropes had started to be established, and even at this point, this was probably super generic a story for Doctor Who.
Well, coming off the back of season 5, which had Tomb of the Cybermen, the Abominable Snowmen, the Ice Warriors, the Enemy of the World, the Web of Fear, Fury from the Deep, and the Wheel in Space.
And that's something about this episode and the story is there's no atmosphere.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's
just like everything's just point and shoot. There's that one neat set, but the rest of it is so...
yeah. Painfully dreary. Just a slog to get through, poorly paced, awful. Pointless as well, a waste of money.
Yep.
Fuck it. I think we should move on to some more interesting, like stuff that I've already written down, because I honestly don't want to talk about the episode.
Yeah, no, move on.
It's on DWM, out of 241 stories, it's ranked 234.
Wow.
Very low. So just above it is the Rings of Akaten, which is leagues better than this in my opinion.
Oh yeah, wait.
It's below Doctor Win in the Wardrobe.
They're both bad, but different kinds of bad.
Yeah.
This is uninspired and dull, whereas the other one's annoying.
Yeah.
So it's different kinds of bad, apples and oranges. Really.
Yeah, it's hard to say because like there's more things I could come up with. Like the thing about usually when a new Who story is bad, it's bad in more interesting ways.
Yeah.
Like I can come up with a list of things I hate and got angry at whilst watching that episode. But with the Dominators, it's not a list. It's just it was shit and boring.
Yeah. There's no complexity really to the story. There's no complexity really to criticisms that can be brought to it.
Yeah, and there's only 7 stories under it, and they're all either on the list or Fear Her.
Fear Her is better than this.
Yeah, Fear Her is better than this episode. I know that Fear Her's got like a lot of far-fetched storytelling in it, and it's cringy, but it's so much more entertaining than the Dominators, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the thing is, if Fear Her was on a different TV show, I think it would work. I don't think this would work on any TV show.
No. Because this is a very Doctor Who-centric, like, archetype in terms of the way a story is told. But it's just meh.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like.
So I think it's at about the right place on the list.
I'd say so.
Low, deservedly low, terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Always reliable IMDb. If part 1 is 6.3, part 2 is 6.2, part 3 is 6.1, part 4 is 6.1, and part 5 is 6.2.
That's too high.
It's way too high.
Too high rated.
Right, the writer, Norman Ashby, is a pseudonym for Mervyn Heisman and Henry Lincoln. They also wrote The Abominable Snowman and The Web of Fear. The Abominable Snowman isn't the greatest story of all time, but it's interesting.
And it's atmospheric.
And it has really good ideas.
Yeah.
And The Web of Fear is one of the best Troughton stories. Great atmosphere, great pace. And The Web of Fear is a 6-parter.
Yeah.
And so is The Abominable Snowman, so they've had experience before writing a 6-parters.
It makes me wonder if maybe there was some like behind the scenes politics or something that affected the quality of the script, meaning that A, they used the pseudonym, and B, the quality of the script was just not as good.
Yeah, because they used their real names for the previous stories.
Yeah. Maybe there was some beef with the BBC or something.
Yeah. It's no surprise that was their last script for Doctor Who, the Dominators.
Yeah, it's.
The director was Maurice Barry. He also directed The Moonbase and Platoon Cybermen.
What? Those are way better than this in terms of like the style and the atmosphere.
Especially The Moonbase. Yeah, like those two stories are some of like the most chilling stories of all time. Like the OG Cybermen stories. And then this,
it's just an aff.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you can't really put a lot of the direction down to the editing, because the editing was bad, but I didn't think the direction was all that special either.
No, the direction was very bland. Just like the writing, it was all very, very bland.
Yeah. There was no musical composer for this, but there was a special sounds person. His name's Brian Hodgson, and he provided the special sounds from An Unearthly Child to the Sea Devils, so he was there for a bit. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to highlight that because all the sound in this episode was done by the special sound, and there was no actual music.
Well, I noticed there was no particular stings or motifs or anything.
Scores, yeah.
No, there's no score.
Yeah, I think that definitely hurt it as well.
Because it just led to less atmosphere.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lack of music can lead to an atmosphere, but when it's entirely lacking in significant amounts of music, then...
Yeah, this is kind of like... The Dominators is kind of like the template for shit Doctor Who. Yeah. Pretty much.
And generic Doctor Who.
Yeah. Now we move on to the trivia.
Ooh.
Script editor Derek Sherwin also had a significant input to the writing of episode 5. Heisman and Lincoln's decision to use the pseudonym appears to have been made at a late stage, as the existing camera scripts for the story bear their own names. Seems like they were giving up on it.
Yeah. Abandoned ship.
Ugh. Episode 3 was recorded on 35mm black and white film, as opposed to the usual 625-line PAL black and white videotape to make editing easier. The episode was not identified by any on-screen caption, and this was inadvertently omitted on the recording day.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't notice any particularly popping visual difference in the film stock style, but...
What style?
Yeah, exactly. It was so bland that there was nothing.
Radio Times credits Sheila Grant as the Quark voices for all 5 episodes. On-screen credits read Quark voices by for episodes 1 and 2, and Quark voices for episodes 3 to 5. I think we had this before with it was like Master and the Master. Yeah. The start of season 6 was heralded with a preview of episode 1 on the This Week page in the Radio Times, which read as follows: "The start of a new adventure of Doctor Who and the Dominators. in which the Doctor hopes for a peaceful holiday on the planet of Delkus, but meets some of the very disagreeable creatures. This was accompanied by a small black and white profile shot of Rhaegar looming over the Doctor on the Island of Death, with accompanying caption, Doctor Who comes face to face with a new and particularly deadly foe in his latest adventure, Doctor Who and the Dominators, which begins on Saturday. What a generic ad for a generic episode.
Everything about this is just so bland and cardboard.
The Radio Times program listing for episode 1 was accompanied by a black and white photograph of 2 Quarks at a drilling site near the War Museum, along with a synopsis bearing the title, Look Out, It's the Quarks. Read as follows. They are Doctor Who's latest enemies in the new adventure beginning today at 5:15. The TARDIS excels itself and picks a very pleasant spot on which to land, the planet Delkus. The Doctor has been there before and knows its inhabitants, the pacifist Delcians, well. So he promises Jamie and Zoe that they can look forward to a peaceful holiday, but the things are never what they seem, and the Doctor discovers how he has been deceived, for the planet has been taken over by the cruel Dominators and their deadly robots, the Quarks. Perhaps the most frightening enemy that the Doctor has ever encountered.
Frightening, yeah. More terrifying.
Yeah, turn off your TV, terrifying.
Well, change the channel, terrifying.
Yep. Chris Jeffries doubles for Patrick Troughton in all location shot scene featuring the Doctor. You were right about that.
I did notice that.
Chris Jeffries. This was one of the stories chosen to be shown as part of the BSB's Doctor Who weekend in September 1990. Why?
Don't show people this. Bad.
Patrick Troughton requested a showing of the Dominators at his birthday party shortly before his death in 1987.
Was he a massive troll? Like, did he just try?
I think he had like a really good time filming this.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then everyone at the birthday party's like just trying not to tell him that it's shit. And he's like, oh, well, I was in this. The Radio Times program listing for episode 3 in certain regions were accompanied by a black and white photograph of Jamie and Cully on the Island of Death, bearing the title Two in Peril, with the accompanying caption, Jamie and Cully are menacing by the terrifying corpse. God, I just want to skim past a couple of these. Oh, I don't give a fuck about the Radio Times. Jelly babies, more associated with Tom Baker, make their Doctor Who debut. The Doctor eats some from a bag while waiting in a transport capsule. Well, if you were in a story this slow, I think you'd have time to, wouldn't you?
You know what's weird about that? It is quite a little quirky thing, but as fans of Doctor Who, we know that was Jelly Babies. But the fact that we only saw him like putting the package away, for the first time that it appeared, people would be so confused as like, did he just have stuff in his pocket? Like,
yeah.
and then they never bring it up again, which could be construed as quite a little comedic surreal.
Maybe when in Robot, when Tom Baker was looking through his costumes, he looked through Troughton's and found that bag of Jelly Babies.
That could, maybe.
And it's got Gallifreyan preservatives in them.
It regenerates.
Yeah. Regenerating Jelly Babies. This is the only story directed by Morris Barry to not feature the Cybermen, and the only story written by Heisman and Lincoln not to feature the Yeti or the Great Intelligence. So they go away from their comfort zone and they fail.
Yep. I know what that's like.
When exiting the TARDIS, the Doctor mentions mental projection isn't easy. He had just finished a lengthy mental projection to show Zoe his most recent encounter with the Daleks, the second in the wheel in space, which I think is coming out on DVD. I think they might be animating it. So that'll be good. Then you'll have like all the Cyberman stories will have animation on them. The Doctor will cite his liberation of the Dulcians from the Dominators and their Quarks as an example of his fight against evil across the cosmos, while standing on trial before the Timelords in the War Games. I don't remember that.
No.
Arthur Cox, who has a major role in the story, is one of around half a dozen performers to have acted in the black and white era and in the 21st century. Plus, he is one of 39 that have been in both classic and New Who.
Who was he in New Who? Oh no, he was in the
11th hour. Oh! Yeah, it's his car in the 11th hour.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Ah, yeah, I remember now. I remember. That's funny.
Yeah.
Huh. Whenever I watch the 11th hour and I see that scene, I'm like, oh, he's from that shit story.
Yeah. You're gonna see him and then fall asleep.
Yep. Originally a 6-part story, The Dominators was edited at the script stage down to 5 episodes by Derek Sherwin.
Good.
Good. Well, it should have been edited down to less.
Should have just been edited out of existence.
Yep.
Deleted.
A rumoured working title for this story is The Beautiful People. But this does not appear on any paperwork. Why would they call this?
Because the Paradise People, even though they're all like white old men, like they're called Beautiful People.
Right. Viewership. Episode 1. What do you think episode 1 got?
2 people.
6.1 million.
Too many.
So that's like the same as Bad Wolf.
Yeah.
Episode 2?
3 people.
5.9.
Oh, quite a drop.
So 0.2. So 200,000 less. Episode 3.
6.
5.4.
Oh shit, so just keep going down.
Episode 4.
5.4 again?
7.5.
Must have been something else on, like a sports event or
Episode
something.
5.
7?
5.9. So episode 4 like suddenly
Peaked.
went up somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That's bizarre.
It is.
Jesus Christ. Give your conclusion and a rating out of 10 for the Dominators.
Bland. Boring. Inoffensive, I suppose, but very, 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 very dull. Very paint by numbers. Very generic. 3 out of 10.
Yeah, the Dominators doesn't anger me like some other episodes do.
Warriors of the Deep!
Yeah.
They didn't dominate jack shit.
Yeah, they didn't dominate jack shit in the words of Tony. It's a story that doesn't anger me like some others do. But it's so boring that it makes it almost unwatchable. And it drains you of your energy. That like the fact that the Dominators was so terrible, we couldn't even do a proper review because we just
there was nothing to say.
We've been wiped out by it.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of the rating. I'm trying to weigh up the positives and the negatives. It's difficult. I'm gonna give it a 3 asterisks. Yeah, because it's terrible, but I'm not sure how terrible it is compared to other terrible episodes. So I think for now I'm gonna give it a 3 asterisks.
Alright.
Yeah. Is it worse than Hellbent? No, it's not. No. The Dominators doesn't do anything that destroys the show. It's just
terrible.
It's just terrible.
Yeah.
It's just terribly boring. And you can watch the Dominators and then never watch it again, and it won't affect your like you can still love the show, even though the Dominators is shit.
Yeah.
With Hellbent, it's hard to love the show if Hellbent affects your outlook on it as a whole. So I think that's one of the main arguments for the Dominators.
It's isolated terrible.
Yeah. Of course, when we're talking about comparing to Hellbent, we take in consideration your comments. Now, I did ask the subscriber to leave a reason why, but I didn't actually get a reply. But I'm sure we will do fine. Anyway, so of course this week we're going to be defending Last of the Timelords, the Series 3 finale against Hellbent. And seeing as you like this episode a lot, I think I'll let you have the floor first.
Okay, so I'm just thinking about where to begin. I'm going to try and see what it is that people usually have negatives with about this episode.
I've heard some negative reviews, so I can probably input some
I have as well. So
counteractive opinions.
From what I have read and seen, a lot of people often don't like the reversing of time thing, and they feel like it goes back on consequences that the episode set up. But the thing is about that is this story wasn't about the big, grand, epic master plan. That was over the top and silly, yes, I admit that. But what this story was these big, over the top, melodramatic moments that actually revolved around the characters within this. And those core characters who should have been affected remained affected by this show, by this episode. Sorry, the whole process of Martha walking the world and getting the weaponry as a facade just to stall for time for the Doctor to tap into the matrices, which I can agree and see that whole genetically de-aging thing through the mental power is a little strange, but within the character's story at that point it feels earned enough, and everything else that comes before it is so brilliant and so clever that leads up to it. I'm willing to look past it being so silly because the emotional side of it behind it feels earned for me. Like,
yeah, it's like the Master is toying with the Doctor. He's got him in his cage, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to make you old and useless, and I'm going to have control over you.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the whole Master-Doctor dynamic, and the point of it being the power of words, and the power of words and the power of patience, as opposed to it's very much indicative of Tennant's Doctor specifically, but the Doctor as a whole to some extent in terms of using words and intelligence and deception more than using violence. Like
it's a very psychological finale, isn't it?
And because the Master believes that Martha would try and kill him using this technology that Torchwood and Hewlett and everyone built, because of the whole Time War thing. The Master remembers the Doctor as this soldier in the Time War, which is again something that's been playing into the 3 seasons, which ties into the whole series arc of Martha earning the Doctor's respect because he's just sort of brushing her off because she's not Rose, which is a whole separate topic which we'll get to, I'm sure. But the fact that the silly parts of the episodes, of that episode specifically, have a point and a reason and don't break the story and don't pull away from the story. It is very bloated and silly at points, but it is earned. And then the last 15 minutes with the emotional stuff, and the part where the Master dies and refuses to regenerate, where the Master wins. The Master wins. The Doctor just, and this ties into the whole end of time thing as well, where the Doctor just around him, everything just keeps going wrong. Well, the Doctor has the Master. He's reversed what the Master has done, so the Master basically has a clean slate, other than, assassinating the President. But, in terms of the grander scheme of things, the Master has somewhat of a clean slate. And he says, no, I don't want to be your slave. Even though in the Doctor's eyes, that's not what it would be. It'd just be his friend. The Master dying ties into this thing of the Doctor after time all being so alone and needing someone by his side. And then adding on top of that, Martha says, nope, I've seen what can happen when I'm away, and I don't ever want that to happen again. Because from episode 1, Smith and Jones, what's the first thing we get to see Martha doing? On the phone to her whole family, she's the core of her family. She's the rock that they're all built around. She's the stable one, and she would do anything for her family. Martha as a character, she's very family oriented, and she goes off and falls in love with the Doctor and everything. And that's another thing I've seen a lot of my complaints with, is falling in love with the Doctor. But they seem to forget the fact that her arc leading up to Last of the Time Lords, it's like the anti-Rose.
Yeah.
And I really like that, because she becomes this woman who realizes, I'm brilliant.
Because obviously when the Doctor meets her, she's just finished her doctor's degree, and she's really intelligent.
She's not an extraordinary figure doing normal things. She's a normal person doing extraordinary things.
Yeah.
That's what I really like about her. She's really kind of the every woman. Even though she's a doctor and she's really intelligent, she's still very human, and she's fragile, and she makes mistakes, and she's very, very human. And through her belief and her hope and her love for the Doctor, she pushes through, and in that finale, she wins. Because she realizes, I gotta stay here, I'm gonna start doing whatever, and eventually we find out it's working for UNIT, but she's like, I can't go traveling with you, Doctor, because A, I love you, and I can't, this is just boiled into a toxic relationship, and B, because she needs to be here to protect not only her family, but humanity as a whole, because she's seen what can happen, which ties into her eventually showing up in Torchwood as well.
And Series 4.
And Series 4, of course. And because this, I get why people might not like this finale, because if they don't like Martha, because they're wrong. But like, it's such, everything ties into what the characters should have dealt with, and everything is very character motivated, and that's why I like the finale.
We may have gotten a bit lost there because we were recharging the camera. But we were talking about Last of the Time Lords.
Yes.
I'm going to pull up some reviews, and we'll try and respond to them.
Let's do it.
So, Stephen Brooke from The Guardian said, certainly an epic conclusion, but not a satisfying one. He felt it was too epic and too rushed. The resurrection of the Doctor left me cold. SFX reviewer Dave Goldis said, it was good solid fun with great performances and memorable visuals, but possibly the least satisfying New Who finale so far. I would agree with that to an extent, but I still really like the episode anyway. It's just that Parting of the Ways and Doomsday are also really, really, really good episodes as well.
I think this is better than Doomsday.
Yeah, I know you do. Loads to enjoy, such as John Sim as the Master, Pre-Major's performance and the effects. He wished to explore more of the dystopian world and said of the conclusion, I liked the message it was trying to get across, but the shots of ghostly Tennant floating down the steps did unfortunately look something like out of a panto. IGN, no one likes IGN, gave Last of the Time Lords an 8.4, believing it was the weakest entry of the three-part finale, though it had some fine stuff, especially the final confrontation. However, he thought the biggest misstep was sidelining the Doctor and the logically muddy conclusion. Mark Wright at the stage called it the weakest of the season finales to date, with much of the plot being lazy or not making sense. Is silly and lacks substance. While he praised the emotional climax in Martha, he found Jack criminally underused and criticised the representation of the aged Doctor. Stephen James Walker summed up the episode as bleak and depressing, and listed the ill treatment of the Doctor, the use of a reset button, and the underuse of Captain Jack as among the problems he had with this story.
As I said with the reset button thing, it is a reset button, and as a story beat and element, that usually really frustrates me. But as I said, the core characters who should have been affected by this remained affected by it. The Master was still dead until he was resurrected by black magic for some fucking reason.
Oh dear.
Martha stayed behind because of what she'd experienced. She realised she needed to stay on Earth to be a protector and also to get away from what could evolve into being a toxic relationship with the Doctor. Jack went back to Torchwood and became, well, he hasn't seen all Torchwood yet, so we'll see. But Jack was affected by it as well. The Doctor left with the hand. He left with Martha's phone. And all these elements that people who were emotionally affected by the core of the story, who should have been at the heart of the story, were at the heart of the story. So yes, the reset button is frustrating, and yes, the floating Doctor is. I can see why it could be off-putting. I, as a viewer, am so invested in Martha as a character and her journey, more so than Jack, because Jack is a neat character, but in this is Martha's story. It's not the Doctor's story.
Yeah, Jack's there for a bit of fun.
Yeah, and this is a story between Martha and the Master, and the Doctor is there as a key element to keep. It's not saying, oh, the Doctor shouldn't be in this element, because he is, because as soon as the Doctor's resurrected, he saves the day. The Doctor is the hero in the end, and he gets all of the Doctor's screen time. Because people say, oh, the Doctor's criminally underused, except all of his screen time is where it should have been, with the Master.
Yeah.
Even though he's this weird CGI baby, it's still David Tennant's voice. And it's still the Master and the Doctor going back and forth talking about the drums, and the Master taunting him about the Tocophan being humans, and the Doctor continually saying, there's hope, these people have hope, and the Master saying, give up on your hope. And this bleak depiction of the future of the Doctor reversing that through using the Master's own technology against him, which is a very typical kind of fun subversion of what the Doctor usually does to the Master by using his own arrogance against him and that kind of thing. But then the Master still winning. So I find it a very emotionally satisfying conclusion to these stories, or at least a very emotionally satisfying point in these stories, because a lot of these stories did continue, Jack, Martha and the Master, all included, and the Doctor obviously. But yeah, I find it to be a very emotionally satisfying ending, even though it does have a reset button. It didn't damage what had come before it by resetting. It's not going back on something in terms of character growth.
Yeah.
Or the character still grew. The character still grew. The character still evolved.
What do you, a lot of people don't like the sort of way that it interprets the Doctor as almost like a religious figure, and how the entire story revolves around people having faith in him. Some people complain that it's too preachy and it's too like the story kind of does. It's not. People say it's not sci-fi. They say it's more fantasy. Well, not necessarily fantasy, but it's replicating Jesus and.
Well, it's not even something about the whole messianic thing. Well, that's an interesting one, because messianic stories are interesting. At least are interesting to me. So I can see why people can have an issue with it. But again, it's this whole post-Time War Doctor thing, where the Doctor needed reminding of who he was and that he was a hero. And eventually it ties into the Doctor eventually developing an ego in the waters of Mars at the end of time. So it's all leading towards Russell's point. And I think it's well told. It just depends on if you like that or not. But I still think the Doctor being portrayed as a messianic figure is much better than him being portrayed as a man who goes against his own morals and goes against the rules of the universe.
Oh yeah.
I think I can see how you might not like it, but I just generally prefer my hero of my story being portrayed as upright, moral standing than just a cunt, really.
Yeah. Okay. If you were to discuss this with someone who didn't like Martha, but they did like Clara.
You're a moron.
Yeah, well, yes, but there are people. I know this for a fact. There are people out there.
Oh, so do I. I know plenty.
Who far prefer Clara to Martha.
Mm-hmm.
And they would, by default, prefer Hellbent mainly, but on that, the fact that they...
My argument to that would be, what was Clara's arc? What did Clara learn? Clara came to a climax. Clara's story ended in Face the Raven. It did. It ended in Face the Raven. And everyone I know who likes Clara loves Face the Raven because they're like, it's really sad, but it was a good farewell. And everyone I know who likes Clara, even though they enjoy that the finale was about Clara, they still think, oh, it was a bit stupid that it went back on Face the Raven. Because it was stupid. Because her emotional story had ended, and that story had finished. It had been told, and this finale tells the end of Martha's story. And it's just that's the distinction I would make in terms of Clara as a character taking the foreground of this episode felt wrong, especially because after 10 years of build up to Gallifrey, and that's just shoved aside for Clara when her story had already been... If Face the Raven hadn't happened, and Clara was there in Heaven Sent...
What would you say to someone who says that they pushed the Doctor Master story aside for Martha?
They didn't, because the Master's there throughout the whole episode. The Master's a presence up until he dies. And the Master had effect on the story. Master had relevance. Like Gallifrey, yes, has relevance because it uses their technology. But other than a plot device, Gallifrey has no relevance. Whereas the Master is an active player in the game. He is what they have to face. The Master, the story is revolving around the Master and Martha, and obviously the Doctor eventually. But yes, I suppose you could say the narrative has shifted onto Martha as opposed to the Doctor, which is true. But it's still done for a reason because it's concluding her story, whereas Clara's story had already been told, had already been finished.
Yeah.
And that's the big distinction I would make, is that it just, Clara's story coming back and being told, even though it was the point of Hellbent, it just felt illogical and like that shouldn't have been the point. And this isn't even just coming as someone who doesn't like Clara. It just seems like logically her story was done. And instead of focusing on what they should have focused on, they didn't. I mean, imagine how much more impactful it would have been if Clara had died on Gallifrey.
Yeah.
And like her whole Face the Raven, like make the Raven a Gallifrey thing, right? And then Clara went out on Gallifrey, then it would be much more emotionally satisfying, and then the Doctor could have the whole Gallifrey combat thing.
Yeah, but I guess they just wanted to have a happy ending to the finale.
Not every story needs a fucking happy ending.
I know, right?
And that's why I really like this episode. Is it's bittersweet. Yeah. It's bittersweet because they're smiling at the end, but they're sad in the eyes because Martha realizes...
All the Russell T Davies finales are bittersweet. All of them. Every single one of them.
Absolutely. And that's what makes them good, because they revolve around their characters, and their character stories are told. Rose on Doomsday, and then what happens in Journey's End, a little bit more messy.
Everyone dies in the parting of the ways, and including the Doctor regenerating.
Yeah.
That's bittersweet in a way.
And like in Journey's End and stuff, that's a different story. There's more to that, because that's more about the Russell T Davies era as a whole coming to an end. Even though he did the specials, like Journey's End is the Journey's End of Russell's era.
Yeah, and the specials is more the end of the 10th Doctor, yeah.
Absolutely, that's the distinction. So it's about the finale having a point. And the point of Last of the Time Lords is to tell the story of Martha and also tell the story of the Doctor and the Master's relationship and the Master winning. Because you couldn't have them live. You couldn't just have them escape, because then that'd just be too distracting for the next season, because the next season could just be like, well, the Master's out there.
Yeah.
And like in Classic Who that could work because he was just
functionally in a way it's kind of it's almost a flaw of the show as a whole that you have to reset between seasons and episodes quite often because of the nature of Doctor Who having so many different adventures and whatnot. Russell T Davies kind of had, by writing this story, had no possible way to end it other than to reset it back to normal. But what he did with the story was tell character drama
within it,
which actually does carry over.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're finding a way to impact the story somehow with the circumstances you're in.
And it's this thing of when we see Martha next, she's working for UNIT, and Donna points out, is this what you do to them? Turn them into soldiers, which is a part of what Davros's whole thing is about later on in the year, which isn't handled subtly at all. But that's a different thing. But in terms of characters' arcs having a point and hitting the reset button, but still having effects going forward, so you can still continue to tell stories without it seeming contrived or forced or artificial. It doesn't seem artificial, it feels earned, and that's the big thing. Also, Last of the Time Lords is fun, even though it is very nihilistic and stuff. It does have uplifting moments, and it has the big what the fuck moment of the face of Bo they called me. Like, I remember my family watching around the TV, coming around the TV, like being on the edge of their seats throughout the whole episode, wondering what the hell was going to happen and how the hell they were going to get out of this. And that moment happened. It was just, everyone was laughing and smiling like, oh my god, he's the face of Bo. That's
such an amazing twist.
Yeah.
Even if it is retroactive.
And even, yeah, something like that, because this scene, what season 3 does is it sets everything up and it pays everything off. Everything. It is brilliant. And like, the face of Bo's story basically you think is done after he dies, and then you realise, oh my god, and that's a great lead into what they could do next with Jack or whatever, and it's just, everything feels earned, and the characters feel natural within this big, epic, dark, depressing story, and character motivations make sense.
Yeah.
Everything is justified.
Yeah. And also, Last of the Time Lords has a charismatic villain that keeps you hooked all the way through it, and Hellbent does not.
Last of the Time Lords has an end goal, whereas as soon as the Doctor goes into the time thing and gets Clara out, interesting concept, I'll admit, a frustrating one from a thematic and storytelling purpose one, but an interesting one, I'll give it credit. As soon as they come out, there's only one place they can go, which is just them arguing.
Yeah.
For the rest of, like, and this happens like not even halfway through the episode, so the rest of the episode is just them being pissy at each other, and then going to a shielder, and there's no imminent threat, and like the whole thing with the hybrid, you think, oh, is it a Dalek Gallifrey? And combination is it?
And one of the things that has sort of become guaranteed with New Who story arcs is reveals. And I don't think Hellbent really revealed anything.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because trying something new, I commend Stephen Moffat for trying something new.
But if he was going to do that, he shouldn't have set up the hybrid in the first place.
Nor should he have put it on Gallifrey. He just shouldn't have, because Gallifrey is such a big part, and he himself set it up. And it's like just... consequences. Stories need consequences. And even though there is the reset button, Last of the Time Lords still has emotional consequences from all these characters, and they grow from it. Right? Hellbent. The Doctor...
There is no consequences to Hellbent.
Because you could say, oh, the Doctor learnt. The Doctor learnt, right? But he forgets. The Doctor forgets in Hellbent. And Clara goes on and she doesn't really learn anything, she just gains a TARDIS.
The moral that Hellbent tells you is that if someone you love dies, you can whip into a TARDIS or whatever it is, you can go and do some magic and save them. Which isn't compelling because you can't do this in real life. If someone you love dies in real life, they're dead.
And it's this thing of grieving. It's trying to tell the story of how to grieve. And like, imagine a kid watching this, right? Who recently lost a loved one, like an uncle or even like a parent.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Older
brother, anything, any relation that they loved. And this moral they're telling them is not to try and figure out a way to mourn them and remember them in a positive way, but to be angry and pissy, and it's kind of disgusting, really. It's because this is still a family show, and it's kind of building on this gross moral that was established in Dark Water, and like the whole "don't cremate me" thing, where it's just like it's fine to tell dark stories, but kids will be watching this. That's something that should be kept in mind. And you might say, well, isn't Last of the Time Lords too dark for kids? I was a kid when I watched it. A hypersensitive, very easily upset kid, and I was in awe of it. I loved it. I was invested in it because I cared about this character. And I was able to identify, even at that age, oh, these things have been set up and paid off. It's not just coming out of nowhere. Even the Doctor transforming, he uses the Archangel network, which had been set up from day one. It's just, everything was set up and paid off, and there was emotional consequences to everything, whereas there was no, Hellbent didn't do anything, it didn't add to anything, it just took away.
Yeah.
Took away from Face the Raven.
Took away from Heaven Sent.
Took away from Clara. Like, Clara, I did not like Clara, but Face the Raven, that episode, I loved Clara. I was like, this feels logical. She's actually got a personality now that's consistent. And she went out because of it, and I was like, okay, I like that. The Doctor has to deal with those consequences and try and be a better person through it.
Yeah.
And then obviously they went back on that and Hellbent. And it's just, there's no growth, which is what characters should do.
Yeah. And what I feel like a lot of maybe what people don't like about Last of the Time Lords comes from a position of not investing in Martha. Because that entire episode sort of revolves around her and her story. So if you're not invested in Martha, then you're not going to be invested in Last of the Time Lords that much. But
as you said, there's still there's a compelling villain there. So even if you don't like the Martha stuff, when it comes to the Master, it's still,
the Hellbent doesn't really have a villain. Like,
the intention is the Doctor's the villain.
Yeah, the intention seems to be that the Doctor's
but
the
it's
villain.
told in such a messy way that there's no drive there. It's no compelling. It's just bickering for an hour.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's like you said, it all makes sense in a way when you think about the series as a whole. Whereas, and it's like people complain that Last of the Time Lords isn't consistent with Utopia and Sound of Drums, but I think it is.
It's just like,
yeah, I think it is consistent. It's a reset button on a 3-parter.
Yeah.
You know, people generally. What I find is the people that don't like Last of the Time Lords, it generally has to do with the fact that they're not that interested in character drama. They're more interested in plots, and they see Last of the Time Lords as just sort of a
impossible plot because it's the humans going back and killing themselves in the form of the Top of Fame, which is such a fucked up concept.
Yeah.
But it's a cool one.
Yeah, but I think if you're not really into character drama, you'd look at Last of the Time Lords and you'd say, oh well, it just resets itself. But then, if you're saying it's worse than Hellbent, what makes Hellbent any better? Anyway, because if you cut the character drama out of Hellbent, that in itself is a reset. So, how can you say that Hellbent is better than Last of the Time Lords if you're not talking about character drama? Because look, you say, okay, maybe Hellbent's got better production. It's got Rachel Talalay and Murray Gold, right? But Last of the Time Lords also has Graham Harper and Murray Gold. You know, that Gallifrey theme. This is Gallifrey, right?
Oh yeah.
That's a great theme.
The Master theme?
Yeah, the Master theme.
The Top of Fame theme?
Top of Fame theme. The direction, Graham Harper is a great director. And, and then Rachel Talalay, they're both great. So, I can understand where some of the pacing and editing, yeah, sure, maybe you think that Hellbent's got better editing and pacing. I disagree. I think Hellbent's pacing is awful.
Slog.
It's a slog, but I think to say that Last of the Time Lords is worse than Hellbent is far-fetched, even if you're not invested in Martha. I think it's stupid, in my opinion. But
and even if you are invested in Clara, it damages her as a character, in terms of her ending, because she gets an ending that fit her, and then they go back on it 2 episodes later. And even if she was like a ghost in the Doctor's mind, like she wasn't heaven sent in Hellbent, like even if she was like a figment of his imagination, that could have worked, because that's not actually her, and that's even with the Doctor's character dealing with grief, and you could do something interesting there, but they didn't.
And there's small moments, when you're talking about the cinematography of both episodes, there's small moments in Last of the Time Lords, like, you know when Martha enters the room and everyone's looking at her, it's almost like you can feel there's like this dependency from everyone.
And then they all start talking at her.
Yeah.
And you get that feeling,
Yeah, it's almost like they're all looking at her like, this is your moment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's a feeling of development over the series with that, in Last of the Time Lords, Martha gets to that moment when she's it's finally her, you know? Because the whole...
No one's looking at her until they are.
Yeah. And like the whole story of the season was that like no one cared about her, and now she's the one that has to save everyone. And I can understand if you're not into the whole companion power and whatnot, but I think I like the way Martha traveled the world for a year to save them. You know,
as a trick as well.
Yeah.
To deceive the Master. And that's such a doctory thing.
Yeah.
We're playing the long con to deceive someone and outsmart them.
Yeah.
Stalling, basically, to give the Doctor time, and knowing that woman would betray them so they would get the attention of the Master.
So it's very clever. And there's also that scene where, you know, when they sort of, I can't remember if it's like mental or whatever, but the Doctor and the Master transport into like that quarry. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
by the rockets. Rockets.
There's a lot of like real good symbolism in Last of the Time Lords that represent what's going on in the story. And I just think when Hellbent does that, it's just bollocks. Like when you've got them in the Matrix, so-called, even though it's just a tunnel with Daleks and Cybermen and Weeping Angels, and you've got the Doctor's like lying down like, 4.5 billion years I waited. You know, it's just, it was, and then, you know, fucking Stephen Moffat says, oh, that's one of the best scenes in all of Doctor Who. Even though it's...
Not even one of the best scenes of that episode, or that season, or the show. Or the show.
Let alone,
be it old or new.
Yeah, it's... I think if we were to fully flesh out our feelings, I think we would have to have someone that's... Because if the commenter that had suggested this episode had come up with a paragraph, I think we'd be able to draw off easier, like make a better argument. But unfortunately, they didn't.
Yeah.
So I would like to, if possible, if we could like have a more conversation about this episode versus Hellbent, because it's a hard one. I think when we get to Last of the Time Lords and the series of Jake, I think we'll dive into more.
But we'll have to avoid Hellbent spoilers for Jake's sake.
Oh yeah, of course.
So we'll be kind of skirting around.
But like in terms of our feeling on the episode, because I do think it's quite an underrated finale.
It is.
A lot of people don't like it.
Honestly, I think it could be argued to be the most underrated finale of the new series.
Yeah, I would say so.
In fact, Series 3 I think is criminally underrated as a whole.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's our defense of Last of the Time Lords against Hellbent. Now we're going to find out what is the next story we're going to be watching. What are you hoping for?
Colin Baker. I think I've said I want him for every single one. It's never been.
He's only got 2 stories on the list though.
I want Colin Baker.
Surprisingly, the worst Doctor only has 2 stories on the worst list. Ain't that funny? Right, here we go. You know how I said before I wanted Graham Williams, Tom Baker?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes. It is. It's Nightmare of Eden.
Ooh.
Have you seen Nightmare of Eden?
I don't know. Images are coming to my mind, so I don't know if I have.
I think it's like there's monsters and you can see the actors' heads.
That narrows it down.
Yeah. Nightmare of Eden. I've heard conflicting things about this. It's from season 17. It takes place after Creature from the Pit and before the Horns of Diamond. I've heard one person who's not a big Doctor Who fan say it's their least favourite episode ever.
Wow.
Because it's stale and it drags.
Yeah.
And I've also heard another person say that they think it's really underrated.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm not sure, we'll have to see. But I have been wanting some Graham Williams, Tom Baker, so... Because I haven't seen a lot of it, to be honest. So anyway, that'll be interesting. Nightmare of Eden. Hopefully it's better than the Dominators.
I have a feeling it will be.
Yeah.
Oh, I just jinxed it. It's going to be terrible.
Well, we'll find out next time.